Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this meeting on a very short notice. I would actually like to thank the director for giving his time and Dean for coming to this meeting. In the recent times, as all of us have seen, there has been a lot being said about the policies and the student life in media. There are a lot of rumors floating around. So this meeting is essentially for clarifying what all has been done, what meeting has been done, what is the objective, and let's make the best use of this time and make out any constructive discussions that we have, and all of us at the end should realize that no one here is against students or anything, but whatever efforts have been taken are taken because of maintaining an institute's image and to reduce or bridge the gap between the students and administration. I would like to call upon Director Professor Bhaskar Anamurthy.
Great attendance. Very good. Okay, so let me say just a few things. So, we have at any given point in time certain set of rules by which we run the institute and try to live by: academic rules, hostel rules, staff rules for faculty and so on. These rules are modified by ourselves from time to time. We keep responding to the changed situation. Nobody gives us rules. There are very few rules. The deities are quite autonomous actually. The law of the land, of course, applies, but the police are very kind to stay away unless we call them, which itself, I don't know how many of you realize, is a freedom not given to many in the country. We are allowed to make these rules ourselves. Only government only tells us when it comes to spending money, there are some Government of India rules because we are spending their money, government's money, public money, so there are some Government of India rules. Other than that, they don't tell us anything. We keep making rules, we keep unmaking rules because we are human, we make mistakes, things change. Rules are also not necessarily followed 100%. Some rules are given more latitude than others. To give a very good example, the rule regarding ragging was always there. Even when I was a student here, ragging was not permitted, forbidden. But even after I became faculty member here, ragging was forbidden. But it was always very lax, the application of the rule. In fact, there were teachers of mine who became colleagues who used to tell me that this is unacceptable. Teachers were very sensitive to the outliers, the few individuals who can't take the ragging and who actually pay a heavy price. And I remember actually very vividly, there was one student in my class who actually left the institute within a week because he couldn't take it's not just the ragging, he just was raised in too cloistered a fashion to be able to take the assault, if you want to call it that. He left actually. I remember his father stayed here, and before his father left, he left. So there are these people who get affected by all this, and there are some who believed at that time that you must actually make it, nobody has any business imposing himself or herself on another, but it was all applied very, in a very loose fashion till in some other institute, some other college, ragging led to the death of a student. The student happened to be the son of the vice chancellor of a university, another university. I don't know how many of you know about this. You may not have been born at that time. I don't remember. It happened in 1991, or maybe a little later. And then Supreme Court got into the act and said this is not going to be applied in a lax fashion anymore. And it became very clear to every head of the institution everywhere in the country that you better watch out. Now this is not going to be chalta hai attitude. So after that, everybody has become very strict. Public perception of ragging has become that it cannot be tolerated under any circumstances. No justification is good enough for it. You can argue all kinds of positives about it, but it will not be acceptable, and so on. So these are all, you see, the same law. The law was always there. It's a question of how it is viewed. So some rules are applied strictly, some rules are not applied strictly. To give you another example, the campus rules always are very clear. There is no drinking in the hostel permitted. But one change, I don't know exactly when the rule was passed by the government, it became a law that you cannot have alcohol served in any campus or within, and you cannot have alcohol sold within so many meters of any campus or any religious place and all that. You know, there's a law it's there in the constitution, in our law books now. That I don't know when it came. I think it came some decade or so back. But that changes the situation. Earlier it was a rule, now it's backed by a law. Still applied rather laxly, as many of you know. But there is a law sitting on us. And if something happens which becomes too serious, the police will be here. We must understand that. Okay. So as people who are running the place, who are given autonomy, you are given autonomy only until something very bad happens. So then we have to realize that is there on us. You know, you can't just tell the people, oh, what world are you living in? You know, today everybody drinks. Well, then you go change the law. You fight, you go fight in parliament, you do whatever, change the law. So this is the situation. In fact, I was joking to one of my colleagues, faculty colleagues, it's not even clear whether, because the law was not made taking into account campuses like ours where faculty live on campus, adults, families live on campus. So it's not even clear whether it is legal for a faculty member to have drink in his house. It's not clear, the law is not clear. If you apply the law strictly, it's not allowed. Okay, and yet they are living here, it's their home. Okay, so there are all these things. So what I wanted to point out was rules are made by us, some are backed by laws, some are just rules that we make ourselves. We can unmake them, we can discuss these things, and some are applied very strictly, some are applied less strictly. How they are applied also depends on public perception, on the mood of society and so on, and nothing is written down, cast in stone anywhere. The third, these are all very general points I'm making. Please remember this when we discuss. The third thing is, there's an institutional view as expressed in the rules and as expressed in the seriousness with which rules are applied. And there is a individual. There is an institutional view on attendance in class, and there is a seriousness with which it is applied by some people and not by others. There is an individual view. There are some faculty who believe, why should I take attendance? If I am good enough, they will come. If I am not good enough, let them not come. Or if they are not interested, it's their funeral. Okay. And there are others who feel, no, this is government, this is public money, seat has been given. They like it or not, they have to come and sit. Okay, so all these views. These are individual views, please remember. Each one might have supported or opposed this rule at the time it was made, based on his or her individual view. But finally, there is a collective view of the institution. This is an institutional view. The only views that matter at any given point in time are institutional views. Individual views may matter to each one of us. I may not like you because of some view that you have, or I may like you because of some view that you have. You may decide not to, or interact less or more with an individual because of the view that that person has. But today we should not debate individual views, because there is no end to that. Right? Now, individual views 15 years ago were only expressed in discussion, oral discussion, or in maybe letters that they wrote to each other. Today, individual views are expressed in email, in postings on forums, Twitter, whatever. Okay. Institutional views are not usually expressed that way, though they may be announced also in that way. An institutional view, a new rule that is formulated or a modification that is made, may be announced through the email or through a posting. So today let us we will make a rule for ourselves that we will not discuss individual views of people, however much any one of us may have liked it or been outraged by it. Not because it should not be discussed, but today we should not discuss it. We are not gathered to do that. It's an endless exercise. Okay, we want to finish this in some reasonable time. You can always have arguments, you can always have debates in good old Tibetan Buddhist style or Bengali style, Bengal of the 70s. You can have debates, you can have discussions, no problem. But today we need not do that. So anybody who has expressed any view to you orally, or in an email posting, or in a forum, or in a newspaper interview, if I have said something in a newspaper interview as in my personal opinion, As a director, if I say something, you can question it. Okay. But even then, it's not really an institutional view unless you have a rule. Why I am saying this is, I am not saying you should not be outraged or you should not be supportive of some view. It hardly matters. There could be an individual, a warden or a faculty member or a dean or a director or even a security guard who has his or her own view on the matter. But that doesn't matter. That's not germane to the situation. The security guard may think that two people holding hands and walking on the road is something he or she should stop. He may think that. He may articulate that. If he does that, then he has to be pulled up. If that's not the rule of the institution, he has to be told that you can't apply your own personal views on this matter. You have to follow the rules. There's no rule in the institute that says somebody shouldn't do that. Please don't stop this. Okay. But if you start getting worked up because he or she has that view, then there's no end to this. Because we are all made of clay. Each of us has our own baggage. We come from different backgrounds. In fact, I would even urge you to be sympathetic to different views, because this is a very diverse country. People come from different backgrounds. We have not yet reached the stage like in the US where people have very diverse views, which are cultivated views and for which they fight and fund parties and fight elections. Very often in India, the more ordinary people particularly, their views are just what they have inherited, the milieu they have grown up in. It's what they believe. They don't mean any harm. It's even good to cultivate a sympathy for the other point of view. So let's not today discuss any view expressed by any individual that has been expressed in an individual capacity. That's my suggestion to you, because it's futile. Okay. Let us say I have expressed a view that is outrageous to many of you or liked by many of you. Just because you come up here and say it's outrageous or you like it, what is the point? Okay. Maybe, because really the institutional rules are made in this institute, and by and large the IITs everywhere have this tradition that we have done it, we don't make rules without discussion. You all know that even in Senate, students are attending the parts that discussions that matter to the students. Even the rule that was made recently, that decision that was made, policy that was made, that the student festivals must finish within the first 2 weeks of the semester, was a decision I'm sure many students didn't like. It's not clear to me how many students didn't like, but many students didn't like. It was discussed extensively, if I'm not mistaken, Ganesh, in the SAC, and then it was discussed in the Senate. He made an eloquent pitch, right? But finally, the faculty overruled. Senate has the right to decide this matter. So after listening to everything, they decided whatever they decided, and you all know. It may be undone, it may be continued, whatever it is. That is the way it is done. It's not done without discussion. Similarly, rules regarding hostel, rules regarding how we conduct our mess, everything, we do it through a large amount of discussion, and the less associated as it is with academics, the more actually we let the students decide. And similarly, the residential area, we let the families decide what they want. We don't really try to make rules for people. We have to worry only about when it overlaps with the law. Okay. So you can't, for example, in the SAC make a rule that you can have in any permissible form liquor in the hostel, because it is against the law of the land. So you can't do that, simply, period. So that's where it kicks in. Otherwise, we don't make rules. So let's also try to discuss the institutional view. If since institution keeps changing rules, if you have heard about or if you think that certain new rules have been made or are being made or likely to be made, we can discuss those. But also let's remember that we are not making anything in a hurry. We are not unmaking anything in a hurry. So in fact, there has been no effort to make any sudden new set of rules or write a new book or anything. So we need not get agitated about it today. The press somehow seems to have got the impression that some new rule book is being written, or maybe they just decided to sensationalize it or whatever. But there is no such thing. Okay, there have been some few steps that have been discussed. No decision has been taken. In fact, in tradition, that has also been discussed very widely, and we can discuss some of those today. There is no harm, but there is no hurry. Even if you don't complete the discussion today, we can continue with it. That's the second point. The third is nothing to do with our rules, etc. If you are agitated about the bad press we have been getting, why it has happened, who is responsible and so on. Instead of let's, I mean, it'd be difficult to pin responsibilities, but we should discuss that. Is it good for us? How do we, I mean, is it necessary? You know, and how should we, do we want it? Should we want to do things in a way in which we don't get press? That is not representative of what is going on. Okay. First of all, even if it is representative, sometimes we may not want. There is no need for some things to be discussed in there because it may not be of interest, general interest, but sometimes it may be. After all, we are not secretive. So in that case, we probably don't want it to be misrepresented. We can discuss that also. That's certainly one issue. It arises not only in this case, it could arise in any case. It could arise when there's an unfortunate event like what happened last week on campus. It could arise, there's some other event on campus and so on. It could arise in all kinds of situations. So that is another thing that we can discuss if you want. So let's sort of discuss, let's keep the discussion to policies, potential policies, institutional view. Let us not discuss individual views, right, that may have been expressed or may not have been expressed orally in written form, etc. The reason I am saying this is, it is immaterial. Okay. Any institutional view or any application of rules which are contrary, application of policies which are contrary to established rules, we can discuss those things. If that is being done, first of all, that also can happen. Again, human beings are running this place, and somebody may be applying the rule in a fashion which is not intended, or maybe even applying his or her own rules. But we always correct, we always have feedback mechanisms. We can always go back to the person concerned or other faculty, other student office bearers, dean, director. We can always do all this and get it corrected. It's not that we have had enough evidence in the past that we have corrected ourselves at all levels, including at the level of the director. So I don't see any problem in correcting whenever anybody has overstepped. Usually it happens because of a lot of zeal, because you get two kinds of people generally. You get indifferent people, or you get people, and you get three kinds, let's say. Some who just do what is the bare minimum, some who sort of take it very seriously and start applying their minds very seriously, and sometimes overstep. You can always correct, that's not a problem. Right? I won't claim that such things would never have happened, either in the classroom, we have class committees for that, or in the as a PhD supervisor, or in the hostel as a warden, or as a dean, or as a director. This all could have happened in the past and has happened in the past. We have always been able to correct it, and that's really the secret of running an autonomous institution. So that's all I wanted to say. So let's sort of use, because otherwise we'll have a free-for-all discussion which goes nowhere. Okay, I would request you to think seriously that what I said, I don't think it's necessary to discuss individual views which were expressed in either email or in written form or orally to somebody, because they are not relevant. What X or Y in the institute, faculty or student thinks may matter to you in your relationship with X or Y, but it doesn't matter as an institution. Okay, because remember, it's the same people who make up the institution, but you can look at Parliament and understand this, right? The whole problem that has been occurring now in the lately people are not realizing that if you look at an individual in Parliament, or an individual in Supreme Court, or an individual in IIT, a faculty, it may appear, the entire spectrum may appear in front of you. In your view, what is considered laughable to what's considered highly respectable. But the institution doesn't behave as the sum of the parts. Parliament, when it makes a law, doesn't make it in a frivolous fashion. Supreme Court, when it gives a judgment, doesn't. Future modifications that you're hearing about, in case they have been discussed in any forum. This was not discussed.